Welcome in here to another episode of Five Star Values. We have Jamie Shaw from Rivals with us once again as we break down a little bit in depth again the 2026 recruiting class. That's because Rivals has updated their rankings since the last time we spoke about this group of players. Obviously, this 25 class has looked really impressive, already making an impact in college basketball. We've talked about them over the past couple of weeks, but now let's look towards the future. Some of these guys getting ready to commit, a couple already know where they will be playing college basketball. How much will they shape what the next season looks like? Let's talk it through. Jamie, thanks for joining here. Thanks for talking through this class with us.
James, it's always fun, man.
All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about. I want to talk at the top of this class because the number one player remains unchanged. It's Tyran Stokes. It feels like he's pretty consensus at this point that he is the number one guy. Tell me, what has he done to separate himself? Why has he kept his spot atop this class?
Well, it's as you look across this landscape, what you see is somebody whose skill set. Now, when it comes to the play on the basketball court, there's just a lot of stuff there. He's somebody who matches potential upside, still attainable potential upside, along with current production. And there's also a physical dominance that he has when he gets on the floor with his ability to consistently go at his peers, create advantages, and produce in a pretty major way. When you look at the 6'7", 225-pound frame, you see the length, the physical explosion that he has, but he's also got some processing ability, ball in hand, able to make plays for his teammates as well as himself, ability to get downhill. You see the path, you see the defensive upside, some
Mhm.
shot making stuff. And there's so much there, and he's done it at the highest level. 3 gold medals with USA Basketball and the FIBA stuff, and 20 a game. This is his third straight year on the EYBL 17U circuit, and you see that he's continued from 10 points to and continue to grow in his game that way. So there's just a lot there, and in a class where there's some uncertainties and some question marks. Some guys that the highest level that you look at that have question marks when it comes to the basketball game between the lines with Tyran Stokes. There's a little bit more answers than his peers.
Right. Of course, Tyron Stokes, not too long ago, I think about a week ago, did depart his current high school. There's been all kinds of speculation. Will he try to reclass into the winter? What is he going to do? At this point, we're still pretty confident, right, that he's going to be in this recruiting class as far as what college he chooses.
Yeah, everything I'm hearing right now, obviously, it sounds like they're trying to possibly explore the potential of enrolling early, but everything I'm hearing right now sounds like high school is going to be the move.
All right, and that's um, sometimes a benefit. I know that it's always how quick can you start your clock, but we talk about questions around other guys at the top level, as you spoke about. Sometimes being able to be the best guy in your class, I feel like, is a little bit overlooked when these guys are evaluating what option they want to go for. Look,
Mhm.
this current class is, I mean, they're big time. You
Pretty
slot
good.
into that class and you're putting yourself in with the wolves for sure. Maybe here you have a little bit more attention on you, which sometimes can help you grow your game even more when you're kind of thought of as the guy. More people pouring more into you becoming that number one prospect that you're anticipated to be. We look though at some of the rest of the guys. I want to talk about Dylan Mingo. He's a guy who we talked about in the offseason over the summer, 6'5" point guard. I'm really interested in these big guards and how they can continue to develop. Um, we know obviously Caden Mingo already having an impact on the college game in his freshman season. So, what has Dylan done to keep climbing up this board, keep making his way towards the top?
Well, as you mentioned, there's a positional size to them. When you look at the top tier of point guards in this class, they're all somewhat smaller.
Mhm.
But then you have Dylan, who's a ball in hand creator. He's a guy who gets into the teeth of a defense and creates something. Um, so he's got that great length, and you see the projectability. He's also the youngest player in this 2026 top 150. He's the youngest player there by a couple months. You see the upside. You see what he's already able to do. You see the defensive ability, able to guard both on the ball and very aggressive the ball with deflections and ability to play aggressively in the up the line and the passing lanes and all that. Gets into the teeth of the defense, draws a lot of fouls, draws a lot of contact, creates opportunities, and you just really like to see. And he can have 2 feet in the paint and live dribble pass, left hand, right hand, hitting the guys in the corner. The decision making that you see and the crafty nature that he has on the ball. There's a lot of stuff there that you like long term. Now, as we mentioned previously, there are questions.
Mm-hmm.
All these guys have questions that come with it. He's a good athlete, not great athlete. The jump shot load is a little bit elongated when it comes to getting into the shot. So those are some things that he's going to have to clean up as he continues to move forward. But given his age, how young he is within this class, and then the upside and the projectability and the instincts he has, he's got that it factor to him of just getting wins, making winning plays throughout the course of a game, and then the upside with his positional size. There's just so much there with Dylan Mingo, with the production that's already in place.
Yeah. And Bryson Howard here comes in at number 3. He's moving his way up the board. Of course, rivals higher on him than the consensus at this point. Already a Duke commit. We know that John Shire has his sort of mold that he recruits to. He wants to be big. He wants to be long. Listed at 6'4", but Howard's got a lot of skills that are going to translate into that system, doesn't he?
Yeah, there's a connecting factor that Bryson Howard brings. At 6'4", 200 pounds, he's a big, strong, firm body. He's got a strong base. He's somebody who can dribble, pass, and shoot into an advantage. You put the ball in his hands, he can knock down shots at a high clip, spacing the floor. But you can also put the ball in his hands and let him create a little bit of offense. He plays a very efficient game. He's also very young for this class. So you see some upside there. And watching him play also, there's a two-way factor to him. So not only is he able to dribble, shoot, and pass to an advantage and play off of multiple guys on the offensive end of the floor, on the defensive end of the floor, he's able to slide up and down the lineup as well. You'll see him guard at the point of attack. You'll see him get in the passing lanes aggressively off the ball, and you'll see him even be able to slide down and create leverage guarding on the block as he scales down a lineup. So with Bryson, while he might not have that top end, just that pop, that pizzazz that you have for the upside, there's a pretty high floor with what he brings and his ability to do so many things on the court at a high level, and while getting his own production, elevating the floor of the others around him as well.
Right. Caleb Gaskins comes in at number 4, already committed to Miami. Really interested to see that kind of Lucas pipeline that we're starting to see. Obviously, one of the top recruiters in the country when he was at Duke as an assistant. He's picked that right back up. Looks like he's going to have a really good player here, a 6'8" guy from the area at Columbus, and going to keep him locally at Miami.
Yeah, so when you look at Caleb Gaskins, what you see is he just checks a lot of boxes. There's the positional size that he has, 6'8", long arms. He's got a great frame, projectability as he continues to move forward. Where he's really developed is his shooting.
Mm-hmm.
He's got real shooting touch, and that's something that helps space the floor, create advantages and everything, playing off the ball. If you're not going to be a primary creator with the ball in your hand, you want to be somebody who can knock down shots. And at 6'8", Caleb Gaskins is somebody who has a very, very pretty, picturesque looking jump shot. You think is going to continue to grow as he continues to develop comfort and confidence within his game. There's also the defensive side of the floor, as we mentioned with Bryson Howard. With Caleb Gaskins, he's able to guard multiple spots on the floor as well. He's able to guard off the ball. He's able to slide his feet with perimeter-based forwards, and then even scale down, with his strong, long frame and do that. I was talking with somebody previously. Reggie Bullock was a name that came up in shades of, or not one-to-one type stuff, but archetype, lineage, potential outcome type stuff. Reggie Bullock was a name. Reggie Bullock still in the league cashing checks. You see the size similarities. You see the jump shooting ability and all that, and you kind of see a pathway with Caleb Gaskins where he may not ever put up massive numbers because of the secondary nature of his game,
right.
But you see a very real situation where the value he brings with the positional versatility, with the defense side of the floor, and the depth shooting touch.
Yeah, when we talk about there's different types of draft classes and recruiting classes. And you look at this 25 class and it looks like, okay, you might be talking about the fourth, fifth guy and what is his star potential. But then there's other classes where you're looking for guys who are going to surround the stars that you have on the roster. You're looking for the guy who, as you said, the Reggie Bullocks of the world who are going to go out there and sure, they're not going to, pound the ball and get to a spot and create shots, but they do all the things, all the dirty work. They space the floor for those star players who need to get downhill, who need to get to those spots and just make life easier for the star. That's a big part of being in the NBA, of getting paychecks for 10 plus years is what do you offer that you can take off the plate of our star rather than necessarily what all can you take on your own plate?
Oh, absolutely. And kind of going through this process, especially with this class, we were spoiled this last class because if you think about it too, already you have the AJ Dybances and you have the Caleb Wilsons and Darren Petersons of the world, but people that went out of that class like the Mustafa Tiems and the Jaden Quaintances and Josan Sandin and guys, that was just a loaded class from start to finish throughout the whole process. So it was a little bit different of a methodology. Looking at this class, it's not quite. It doesn't have that pop at the top.
Yeah.
So at this point in time in the process, a lot of these guys, the Bryson Howards and the Caleb Gaskins, may not have that upside you say, but their floor is pretty high.
Yeah.
They had the floors of somebody as to like, okay, obviously they still got to put the work in. Things still got to break right for them, but there's very real NBA outlook looking for these guys. So let's go ahead and put them up in the process where we can see them ending up being. While they might not have the ceiling of some, they're their floor is relatively high. So in looking at a class like this, that's what makes it difficult because some of the best players in this class will probably come from the bottom of these rankings, just guys that develop later, guys
Mhm.
who go to the right system and they develop their game and confidence, maybe grow an inch or two, and all that stuff, the unforeseen stuff. So this class is an interesting one.
Yeah, for sure. And one of those interesting groups, and this is where I'm going to kind of divert the show from going down the list one, two, three, four, five to I want to talk about a couple of players. You mentioned it earlier when we were talking about Mingo. Deron Rippey at number five fits into this category. Let's talk about the small point guard and the value in this recruiting class because there's Mingo up top who's got the positional size. And then you've got kind of a tier of guys. You've got your Rippies, your Tay Kinneys, others in that group who have a lot of talent, have a lot of upside left to unlock. But we see how much the game has gone towards coaches just wanting the biggest and longest players out there.
Well, and it's a very interesting too. I'm going to veer off a little bit. It's not a tangent, but I'm going to take a little bit of a left turn before I get back to the center
Yeah.
to your question. With these point guards, what you're looking at is the way the game is today, and looking at these players. There's not just a traditional point guard. It's initiators, got
Mhm.
ball in hand guys who kickstart the offense. You look at somebody in the NBA like a Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Right.
Not necessarily point guard, but he's the one that had the ball in his hand to create offense for the team. Is he a point guard? And that's kind of the lineage. That's kind of the pathway. That's what Dylan Mingo somewhat is there. Maybe he's a combo guard. Maybe, but he's the initiator. With
Yes.
that, Lucas Murillo is another guy that kind of falls into that mix. He's a 6'7" guy, ball in hand creation. He's the guy that you want the ball in his hand to make decisions for the team. Maybe he's a small forward at 6'7", but you want him as the primary guy with the ball in his hand to make decisions on the floor.
Yeah.
And for me, that's kind of a point guard. So Dylan Mingo, Lucas Murillo falls into that mix with the Tay Kinneys, Miles Sadlers, Deron Rippies, who are more traditional point guards when you think of it in the just thinking about basketball. So
Right.
so back to your question with Deron Rippey, the explosion is off the charts.
Mhm.
That's what you notice immediately. His quick twitch and burst, ability to get above the rim, ability to get past the initial line of defense, is off the charts. Possibly even the best in this class when it comes to just short area explosion. With that, the pace is off the charts as well. So rarely do you see a player this young who's able to couple together explosive burst to get his elbow above the rim, but also the pace in order to get into the teeth of a defense, get a defender in jail, and keep him there while you make your play.
Right.
Deron Rippey has that. He's great in the pick and roll. He's a quick processor with the ball in his hands. He can create advantages from a standstill playing in the pick and roll or straight up with no screen getting into the teeth of the defense and making a play. He's got the floater game. He can finish at the basket. He can get above the rim. The pull-up jump shots there as well, and he can spray the ball left hand, right hand, live dribble. There's just so much there with him at his 6 foot. He's on the smaller side, 6'1". Maybe 175 pounds or so. So we'll see what kind of weight he's able to add. But there's a lot to his game of being able to play. Catch and shoot's going to be the next step for him when it comes to the skill wise, but everything else he has in spades. And then going through, you see him this summer just taking on everything. The MVP of the high school portion of the Steph Curry camp, the Donovan Mitchell camp, the high school MVP of, first team Adidas Euro camp, first team NBPA top 100 camp. Just the list goes on. Finalists for the USA Basketball U19 team. The list just goes on of everything that he showed up to this summer to take on every ounce of smoke that was available and coming out the other side most of the times in a successful position. You just like that demeanor, that ability in a point guard to kind of lead your team. He's got that it factor. Miles Sadler, very much the same thing with that same type of it factor. He's a 6-foot guard again, on the smaller side, but man, he's just got gumption. He's just got something about him that you trust and believe in. His ability to create space, his footwork, the jump shooting ability from deep range, getting into the teeth of a defense and making a play. And he's really, really, really active and pesky on the defensive end of the floor, able to guard at the point of attack and make life hell for you, turning you multiple times in the backcourt, getting underneath you in the half court, and really making you work and trust your dribble when going against him. But he's able to touch the paint pretty frequently, finish at the basket as well, pull up jump shots, left hand, right hand, passing, live, dribble, all that stuff. He's got it. And then you have Tay Kenny, crafty handle. You like his ability to shoot the jump shot. He's got a lot of confidence as well. Really, really, really good with the pull-up jump shot. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of his thing, getting to the elbows area off of 2 dribbles and being able to pull up. And he's one of those guys, too, that when he's comfortable and able to get rolling a little bit, he can really ring off a lot of offense, too. But there's a very real top tier of point guards here. And again, definition of point guards may vary again. So somebody like a Lucas Murillo, most people might classify him as a forward or whatever. But for me personally, and watching him play, he's somebody I want to have the ball in his hands and as an initiator. So therefore putting him in the point guard realm. But the more traditional side of things with those guys, it's a very, very fun class for the point guard position.
Yeah. I mean, we've moved into an era, let's be honest, where the traditional – there's nothing more difficult in basketball than trying to figure out what traditional position players play. Like, right. It used to be the small guy who dribbled the ball was the point guard. Then you had your shooting guard who was the second tallest guy, your small forward, power forward. And then your center was just the big guy.
Yeah.
Well, now we've got centers who dribble the ball. We've got point guards who are spot up shooters. I mean, it's all across the board. We got into the 1 through 5 to simplify it in some places, but even then, you've got a 4, but maybe he's the 2 on defense. There's all kinds of confusion now. We've got so many athletes, so many guys who can do so many different things.
Or you have Draymond Green, who's 6'4", initiates the offense and is a closing 5 for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, all kinds of just chaos out on the floor. What matters, though, is that you got 5 guys who play complementary basketball. And so the more that you can complement everyone else's game, the better you are going to be served at the college level and at the NBA level. Let's talk about a couple of 2s as they are described who fit that mold in Brandon McCoy and Jordan Smith. McCoy at 6'4". I really like just kind of the base of his game. I think he provides a lot that you're going to get from him. Jordan Smith, the same way. You know exactly what you're getting out of him. It's just a matter of how does it hold up in different places.
For sure. And they're both somebody that are very positionless is kind of a good way to put where they both lie. What you see with Brandon McCoy is a very, I don't want to say freak defender, but somebody who's just really, really has massive upside on the defensive end of the floor. Somebody who can guard you for 94 feet, or he can get off the ball and aggressively play in the passing lanes. Somebody who can come down and weak side shot block while sliding his feet and guarding multiple spots and just the whole gamut of what he brings matches his physical demeanor, the very long wingspan, the athletic fluidity he has, and able to turn his hips and make a play, the deflections that he gains, the competitive nature that he brings, just really, just defensively, he's just got so much to his game. And the offensive game's coming around. Not really a one, not really a two, but he's somebody in that kind of new age lineage of guards that you see now, guys at the highest level who kind of fit in that same. You have the Lou Dorts of the world, the Drew Holidays of the world.
Yep. Drew's a guy that
Um,
we talked a lot about with both of these guys last time when we were talking about this class.
yeah, the Case and Wallaces of the world, guys that aren't really ones, they're not really twos, but they are absolute lockdown perimeter defenders who you put on the point of attack and he causes havoc. Where he goes in college is going to be interesting because that's going to be kind of the role that he has. Being able to solidify the jump shot is huge. That's something Lou Dort did coming in as a sub 30 guy. Now he's above 40% consistently.
Right.
Also, Lou Dort's 220 pounds or whatever. So that's absolutely not one-to-one comparison, but that lineage of player is something, he's going to have to figure out the jump shot and then do a little bit on-ball stuff as well. Coming over to Jordan Smith, it's a little bit trickier because Jordan Smith's about 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah.
With that massive wingspan and everything, he's a little bit more comfortable than Brandon on ball. But he's going to have to, again, develop that jump shot and all that. And there's a huge winning factor with Jordan Smith. And it's glaringly obvious when he's on the floor. You saw it this summer with the team takeover team with him playing. They were, I think, one loss in the regular season of the EYBL. You see it with the Paul VI team, just win after win after win after win. I think they were a top 10 team in the country this past year. Winning just follows Jordan Smith around. And that's hard to deny, especially when he is the lead producer, the ball in his hand, and he's the lead producer on every one of these teams that he plays on. He's a team first guy, talking to everybody around him, both when it comes to USA basketball or high school or AAU. Talk about the work ethic. They talk about the leadership. They talk about just the high character that this kid brings. And that shows in the games. Positionally, there haven't been the margins are narrow when you look at the highest levels of what you have with a Jordan Smith. And when it comes to these rankings, what we're looking at is the NBA. We're looking at the NBA draft. And he's one of those guys that kind of falls in the cracks of he might not check all the boxes, but there's something there that he'll get a shot.
Yeah.
And the production's going to be there. He's going to go to school. He's going to outproduce the measurables, and he's going to get a shot. It's just a matter of kind of what he does with that. But in looking at that, there aren't many people like him in the league that are, cashing checks consistently. When it comes to the 6'2" kind of small forward guys that guard multiple spots and do all that stuff. But Jordan Smith is a special player and somebody that, despite the questions that there are at the highest level, has earned his way to stay in that top 10 as we speak.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about just the range of pathways that guys have. That's what a lot of teams are looking for in that NBA draft. You can talk about just pure talent, and that's not always going to be the order that these guys are drafted in. There's some amount of fit. There's some amount of projection. There's all kinds of things that go into it. And so it's oftentimes, I think, the hardest guys to rank when we talk about NBA, when we bring that into the conversation, because there will be guys who I'm not going to rank higher than 30th on my draft board, but I believe that they're going to establish themselves in the NBA much sooner and probably much longer than guys who I have ranked in the 20s, just knowing that that's teams value certain things. Teams are only going to draft a certain archetype at a certain position. And I think that's something that's an unfortunate reality for some players who don't check certain boxes, but it's part of the game. And look, at the end of the day, we have plenty of examples of guys who don't check boxes and then go out there and prove themselves and end up with great NBA careers, and they can cash the same types of paychecks later down the line once they establish themselves that way.
No, for sure. I mean, looking at this past draft, you have Derek Queen,
Yeah.
somebody who kind of is exactly in that mold as to there's just something. He doesn't check many boxes, but there's just something there that makes it click. You're looking currently, you got Koa Pete, you got
Yeah.
Cam Boozer, guys like that it's just like they don't check a lot of those boxes, but there's something there that gives them the edge to where they're going to succeed.
Right.
Jordan Smith kind of falls into that same mold for different reasons, but in that class, as to those guys previously who found a way.
Yeah, for sure. Another guy who we talked about kind of college fit and how important that's going to be for some of those guys. Caleb Holt is another one that I think that where he goes to school is going to have a monumental impact on kind of his trajectory and how high up boards he can eventually move. Um, he's got a lot of exciting things in his game. It's going to be about bringing it all together, right?
Yeah, he's another one of those kind of connecting piece guys. One of those guys who's 6'5". He can guard your other team's best player, and he can fill in the gaps on the offensive end of the floor. You know, he's not going to necessarily break you down, get downhill, and get into the teeth of the defense, do all that. He's not going to necessarily spray the ball, shooting it and anything, but he can dribble, shoot, and pass to an advantage while getting off the ball, playing off the ball, pulling gravity. Doing that as a secondary type of option. He's somebody who can reinitiate some offense and move the ball, get it to the right spots, and then again, guard the other team's best perimeter option. The connecting factor there has brought him a ton of wins.
Mm-hmm.
Another multiple gold medal guy, another person who teammates just rave about playing with. They rave about being around, and that's teammates. And then you have the coaches who rave about his work ethic and his leadership and the aura that he brings to the locker room. Just one of those guys that just elevates the floor of the team with his presence.
For sure. I want to talk about a group of bigs as we wrap things up here. And when I say bigs, we've got some power forwards in here, we've got some centers in here, but there's a lot of guys who are in this 6'10" to 7 foot category, all kind of ranked close together. Let's see how they all turn out, right? Like we got Baba Oladutin, we've got Cam Williams, who kind of classify as power forwards, and then I do want to go kind of in depth on the Ratliff twins, Darius and Adonis, and their kind of rise up as they continue to build their high school careers. Both, of course, committed to USC recently.
Yeah. So when you look at yes, all well, not really different. Baba's in a different classification. I think Baba's actually a true three, and when you have the other three guys, they're pretty similar. Baba is a shot maker. He's a
Mm-hmm.
guy that has the range, the low hanging fruit kind of lineage, the pathway. What you see is an Ace Bailey type of player. The 6'10" might check out the same way it did for Ace Bailey as well.
Well, that's yeah,
Um,
that's a big key there.
yeah, when it comes to that, but you see a guy who can create a clean look within a phone booth with the ball in his hands.
Mhm.
And there's a unique factor to that. Now, everything might not be, doesn't put a lot of pressure on the front of the rim, doesn't really move the ball great and all that stuff, but his ability to manufacture a clean look within the flow of an offense and his shooting touch and range are very unique for a player with his size and length. And, that's going to be interesting to see the fit as to where he goes in college for how they draw him up shots,
Yeah,
how they draw him up within the offense. As we saw at Rutgers with Ace Bailey, it wasn't necessarily, it didn't work as well as it possibly could have. Now going to college with Baba, somebody who's able to go, where are your 12 shots coming from? What spots on the floor are you getting your 12 shots at? And then mastering how to get to those spots and where they're best at. Super high upside,
yeah.
very intriguing player when it comes to Baba. Cam, Darius, and Adonis, also super high upsides, very intriguing stuff as a player. Cam is a little bit more of a late bloomer, 6'10", 6'11", out of Arizona. He's actually making a decision come up here pretty soon
Yep.
between Arizona, Duke, and Texas. He was close to 50% this summer on catch and shoot threes. So there's a lot of intrigue when it comes to that as to what it could bring. He's still figuring out his offensive game. He plays a little bit upright, a little bit stiff, possibly in his back, which loses leverage at times
Mhm.
when it comes to what he's trying to do. But he's still figuring out how to consistently score and what his offensive game is. But there's a lot of athleticism there,
Right.
and when he puts his head down, when he plays confidently, he's able to get above the rim, punch it on you, do a lot of things when it comes to that. And you see the defensive ability he has with the length, the ability to move his feet and slide and do all that. There's a lot of upside there as he continues to learn his body and frame and how to kind of work into that. Then you see Darius Ratliff, the son of Theo Ratliff, twin brother of Adonis Ratliff, who we'll talk about in a second. You see a true 7-footer who's an inside-outside threat. He's a spot shooter from three, able to pick and pop. He can put him in the corner, and he pulls gravity. But he's also able to get over his left shoulder. He's able to flash into the paint and score, 10 feet and in with quick floaters and all that stuff. Moves incredibly well. Such a fluid mover, which gives him so much upside. But he's very thin. He's had some injury issues over the past 12 months, which has kept him off the floor. Um, Somebody who was previously in the top 20, I think, for on three and missed the last 12 months and continued to drop a little bit and then
Yeah.
rose back up after we saw him again healthy and playing. And there's just so much upside there with a guy who's a fluid mover at 7 foot with good length, that has a little bit of vertical pop, but can shoot the ball. They can create advantages on the offensive end of the floor and score the ball inside out in multiple ways. There's such high upside there as he continues to add weight. And then his brother Adonis, he's a little bit more of a four, like a true four. He's somebody who can really shoot the basketball, who's somebody who's really confident shooting the basketball, somebody who can put the ball on the floor for two dribbles and hit a pull-up jump shot. And he prefers to play away from the basket. He prefers to play facing up. He prefers to face to space the floor while Darius kind of plays inside out and does all that. But obviously, both of them 7 foot tall, both of them incredibly fluid movers, and kind of late bloomers, the sons of NBA guy and Theo Ratliff.
Yeah. And you answered it there, what I was going to kind of tee up this next conversation with. But with the Ratliff twins, I think one of the things that people are going to be most interested in is how well do they play together? Because obviously they've been
Mhm.
playing together their whole lives. And I think that is something that we haven't seen a large sample size of it by any means, but I look at in a different class, obviously, but the Thompson twins and how them playing together their whole lives kind of brought together some of the similar skill sets that we see from them. But then they kind of branch off in that Amin has more point guard qualities. Asar has some more of those wing qualities that we find because one space on the floor is used up by your brother at all
Mhm.
times that you've been playing this game. And so one of you has to stand somewhere, the other one's going to stand somewhere else. You talked about Adonis being more of that perimeter option where Darius gets down low. And so fascinated to see at USC how they can complement each other and then how that impacts both of their stocks as they move forward beyond the college game.
Yeah, for sure. And there are a couple of those guys that after 2 or 3 years in college, could make significant runs up draft boards.
Yeah.
Once they put it on the weight and there's familiarity and they're consistently on the court, and all that. I mean, heck, it could even be after year one. Their shooting is real. Their 7 foot tall is real. Their fluid movements is real. So they're fascinating prospects with the long term that check just so many boxes at the top of the game. And be interesting to see how long it takes them to get there.
For sure. And Cam Williams, just to wrap up kind of that conversation on those that group of guys, um, I really like his game. Just the ability to be that big and be considered a forward. I think I said it last time that we talked about this class, but it just gives you so many outcomes and so many people are going to let you grow into what you become. You talked about it with the Ratliffs, kind of filling out. That's going to take years and years. You're not going to
Mhm.
become whatever you are physically when you're this big at this age. There's a waiting process that comes with that. And if you can be really good in the meantime at doing those spacing the floor, play on the interior when you're needed, stretch the floor when you need to, if you can add some pick and pop, pick and roll into that as well, that's when you start talking about guys who have extreme value and get the opportunity, the runway to become something even greater.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what it's all about. We hinted at it all throughout this entire um, podcast. This episode is the positional fluidity, being able to do multiple things on the floor, being able to float in between two and three different positions on the floor while guarding, creating advantages on the offensive end of the floor on the ball, pulling gravity, however it is that you open up spacing and be able to create advantage, but also guarding across multiple levels on the defensive end of the floor. When you're 7 foot tall and you're a fluid mover, that gives you a chance, just much like
Yeah,
with Caleb Gaskins at 6'8" with length, that gives you a chance to be able to play across multiple positions and have a fluid type of outlook with your game. With Cam Williams, Adonis Ratliff, Baba Oludotun, Darius Ratliff, this last group that you mentioned, they all have that with fluid movement and big positional size with some shooting touch and ability there, which gives them upside. That's super intriguing to see over these next 2 and 3 years what they're going to grow into.
for sure. That wraps us up today in our conversation about the 2026 recruiting class. A lot of commitments, as we kind of hinted at, are on the way. A lot have already picked where they're going to go to school. So stay locked in with Rivals with all of Jamie's work. And we will talk to you next week about some NBA draft prospects. We'll break down a little bit of what these freshmen are already doing in college basketball. It's been so fun to watch. We got so many names that I know we're gonna have to touch on. So we'll try to move quick next week. But thanks for coming on and looking forward to our next conversation here.
Thank you.